Hey guys, and welcome to Girls Frontline 2. Now we do have Lynn's kit dropping. This is a complete detail of the kit with all of the numbers and the percentages to the kit. We'll start off with the effects, and we will have sugar. So sugar is an increase in corrosion damage dealt by 1%. This can be stacked up to 10 times and not be dispelled. Take note of sugar because this will play into some of the skills that we'll be discussing in a while. Next is going to be keto acidemia. So for each debuff held, the holder receives 5% more corrosion damage from Lind up to a maximum of 30%. So this is considered as a corrosion debuff. Also take note of this. And next one is going to be Honey Trap. Upon trigger, Lind applies 3 random powerful debuffs to the holder, dispels 1 buff, and performs action support. So she does have an action support on Honey Trap, dealing AoE corrosion damage equivalent to 80% of attack and 1 stability damage. This is considered as a corrosion debuff. It cannot be dispelled. Next, we have Sustained Dependence. Any debuffs cannot or held cannot be cleansed. For each cleanse resisted, 1 stack is consumed. This is considered a neutral effect and cannot be dispelled. We do have Quick Barrier as well. Targeted damage taken reduced by 60. Effective ones considered a buff. Additional movement as well. We have an extra action here, and we do have a critical bonus too, which is interesting. So critical rate increased by 20, considered a buff. Again, I will repeat. Take note of sugar, ketoacidemia, and your honey trap. So first of her skills is the basic attack. So load some shot, basic attack targeted, selects an enemy target within 6 tile radius and deals physical damage equal to 80% of attack. So this one is a targeted attack. The next attacks are going to be of AoE type. So next or the first skill is going to be AoE. It's going to be debuff. It's called Heavy Saturation. As you can see here, it's a cone shape attack to the front, selects a direction and deals AoE corrosion damage equivalent to 100% attack to all enemies within a 6 tile small fan-sized area in the selected direction. For each debuff held by the enemy, increases damage dealt by 5%, up to a maximum of 30%. Before the skill usage, applies 1 random powerful debuff to all enemies within range. After the skill, increases Confections Index by 2 points. So take note that there's a particular skill later that will need a lot of Confectance Index. So let's move on. So for this skill, if you reach Vertebrae Upgrade 4, applies 2 stacks of Sustained Dependence, which we talked about earlier, and increase the effect range of the skill from a small fan shape to a fan shape area, which is a 2x6 expansion to the left and right of the original area. For each debuff held by the enemy, increases damage dealt by 10% up to a maximum of 60. Okay, so next up is going to be Overload Burst. This skill is an AoE. This one is a diamond shape with Lind in the middle. So deals AoE corrosion damage equivalent to 100% attack to all enemies within a 6 tile radius before skill usage. If Confectance Index is at max, for each stack of sugar, increases damage multiplier by 5. So take note, sugar is going to play a key part in her kit in how she accumulates faster, in which she could deal higher damage. So for this skill, if you're up to Vertebrae 5, increase damage multiplier by 120% attack and increase stability damage by 1 point before skill usage. If Confectance Index is at max, increase crit damage by 20. For each stack of sugar, increase damage multiplier by 10. Okay, next up is going to be the ultimate, which is Sugar Overload. This is also an AoE, which is a diamond-shaped area with Lind in the middle as well. Applies Keto Acidemia to all enemies within 8 tile radius. Upon skill activation, triggers all corrosion debuffs held by enemy units within effective range. After skill usage, Lind can use Loadsome Shot, Heavy Saturation, and Overburst, meaning these are the 3 skills that were mentioned earlier. So this is your basic attack. These 2 are going to be your skills. Okay, so these are basically after ultimate, you can actually attack as well, selecting either of these three. So with your ultimate at vertebrae 2, increase the damage dealt by the next active skill by 15%, which is these three, and enhances keto acidemia. The holder receives 12% more corrosion damage from limb, up to a maximum of 72%. So this is a buff. At vertebrae 6, after skill usage, increases confectance index by 3 points if Lid has 10 stacks of sugar. Reduces the cooldown to skill by 1 round. So this only has one cooldown, 1 turn cooldown. If this is going to be activated, then you can actually spam the skill as long as you have 10 stacks of sugar. So take note, the skills that have high confectance index is going to be your overload burst. So if you're going to be using this, definitely you have to generate 4 confectance index before you can use this. Okay, so next up is going to be the passive in a debuff. It's called Candy Stockpile. At the end of the action, increases confectance index by 1 point. At the start of the round, applies Honey Trap to all enemies. Has a cooldown of 1 round. When enemies with Honey Trap dies or when allies deal corrosion damage, Lind gains 1 stack of sugar. So this is where your sugar is going to be generated. Either an enemy dies with Honey Trap or when an allied deals corrosion damage, which is, I think, much faster, especially if Lind is in a corrosion team. So more or less right now we do have what, 4? So it's gonna be faster to generate sugar with all 4 dealing corrosion damage. When the number of stacks of sugar is held by self exceeds 5, before attacking enemies with Honey Trap, triggers the effect Honey Trap. Afterwards, Honey Trap is consumed. So this one will get the first vertebrae, the first copy. So at the start of the battle, for each ally present, take note. So if you have 4, it's either going to be 4 or 3. Okay, so Lind gains 1 stack of sugar, which is actually nice because you start off with a large amount of sugar in which you can, quickly build up your sugar stacks. Increase the maximum stacks of sugar to 30. Wow, this is going to be big. And enhances the effect of sugar. Increases corrosion damage dealt by 2%. It's no longer going to be a 1%, but it's going to be 2%, which is actually big. So I think for Lind, you're going to have to go with at least V1 for her to get this, at least if you're, if you want to push further, the what do you call this, the AoE will get the second one, which is going to buff the damage of keto acidemia. Holder receives 12%, maximum 72, and this one is also buffed. The damage is increased by 15% in either of these 3. So again, you could go from V1 to V2. For V3, I think this is going to be your option. Removes the cooldown of applying Honey Trap at the start of the round. When Honey Trap is triggered, increase the number of powerful debuffs applied by 3. Increase damage multiplier by 120%, attack, and increase crit damage by 15. So as this looks, your vertebrae or V1 is actually a must-have because this will give you a lot of damage for Lind herself because of the corrosion stacks, not because of the sugar stacks and the increase in corrosion damage and the increase in sugar stacks. Okay, so this one is going to be a must-have. So we already went through all of the vertebrae. Let's go to the fixed keys. So for the fixed keys at the start of the round, gains quick barrier. Not bad. I don't think this is going to be a must. For fixed key 2, heavy saturation overload burst. After skill usage, gains an additional movement. This is also good if you're trying to move around, to a different area, but we'll go to the recommendations later. So fixed key selects one ally in the field. The selected ally will be unable to move or use any skill for the entire battle. Interesting. But decreases defense for all enemies by 15%. This lasts till the selected ally dies. Lid gains one instance of extra action. We'll go to the fixed key later. This is one of the alternate keys that you might want to use. So for fixed key 4, Overload Burst, if this skill only hits one enemy, increases damage dealt by 30, definitely you'll have to use this, because if you encounter bosses, then you will be benefiting from this. Fixed key 5, if Lind has sugar, cleanses one debuff from self before attacking. This is also an option. This is your option number 2, by the way. And fixed key 6 is sugar overload before skill usage, gains critical rate boost 2 for 2 turns. This increases crit rate to 20%. So your must-haves here is going to be fixed key 4 and fixed key 6. Your other options either are going to be fixed key 3 and fixed key 5. So for the common key, so attack plus 5, increase face damage dealt towards enemy with debuffs by 10%. So this is nice. Could be given to Klukai or to Lin to use depending upon you, but this is actually good. Okay, so going to the recommended keys or fixed keys. We'll go first with fixed key 3. So select Michti, assuming expansion key is equipped. So if you're gonna be using fixed key 3, definitely the recommended target here is going to be Michti, assuming expansion key is equipped. So by the time this reaches global, I think Michti will have her mod key already. So, and all of the recommendations that I mentioned before are here. So fixed key 4 and 6 are your recommended keys. Your alternatives are going to be 3 and 5. So for the gun, which is called Thorn Protocol, this one is increasing damage dealt for AoE if AoE corrosion damage was dealt. Okay, further increase AoE damage dealt by 5%. So 5 plus 5 is equals 10. This buff goes to Lin. So next one is before attacking, for each debuff held by the enemy, increase damage dealt by. This is also going to Lin. So she's going to be a heavy damage dealer based on the gun here, based on what the gun gives. Okay, so let's go to, I'm actually curious to go over the expansion key of Michti since she's recommended for the fixed key. Let's take a look at that. So expansion key for Michti, this is for Michti. At the start of the battle, enters Dreamwalk state and gains additional skill, Wake Up Order. If Michti is a Dreamwalk at the start of the round, consumes all Confectants Index and gains a maximum stack of Sleeping Aid Kit for 2 turns. For each Confectants Index consumed, cleanses one debuff from self and applies 1 stack of Dream Excitement for 1 round. Duration decrease at the end of the current round. If Michti is in Dreamwalk, at the end of her action, for each stack Sleep Aid Kit herself, activates an instance of Dream Bullet on the closest enemy, recovers HP equivalent to 10% attack and 1 stability for all allies. So this is basically, she's going to be sleepwalking with this skill. And let's take a look at the effects here. We do have Wake Up Order, we do have Dream Bullet, we do have Dream Excitement. These are all in her effects. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so we do have the first one, which is a Dreamwalk, unable to move or use active skills, which coincides with what Lind is going to turn her into. Unable to receive damage reduction from cover, unable to be controlled when Entering in the state applies Nightmare Shroud to all allies, deactivates patch mode, and enters into turbo mode. All allies gain Dream Guardian. For every 10 points of Confectance Index consumed, applies Nightmare Shroud to all allies. So Dream Excitement increased corrosion damage dealt by 5. This can be stacked and considered a debuff. Dream Bullet alternates between triggering Dreamquake. Oh, she's going to be auto shooting with this. Dreamquake and Bedtime Warm Up. Before attacking, applies Toxic Inundation to enemies within effect range for 1 turn, increases effect range of Dreamquake by 2 tiles. If it's triggered, and increases damage multiplier of Bedtime Warm-Up. 130% of attack is triggered. So that is why she is going to be your target. So she's basically going to be sleepwalking while doing all of this, or instead of actively using her skills, she's going to be triggering it based on these effects. So technically, she is the ideal target for Lind for this fixed key, assuming that you have her. So basically, you need to invest on Michti at least 1 copy once you have Lind, and this will be solved eventually. So, well, again, going back to the fixed key. If you don't have Michti, you don't really need to use this. So this is optional. Okay, so you don't really need to use this. But if you have Michti, this is going to be of great value to you. So that is it. What do you think, guys, of her kit? I think it's interesting, and I think, eventually Klukai will be using another, DPS or a sub DPS in the group, and I think Lid is perfect for that role. Again, guys, comment down in the comment section what do you think. Thank you guys for staying this far. Take care, stay safe. This is the Warden, and I'm out of here.